Hi, this is Savannah,
And this is Brian from the Dorky Diva Show,
and you're listening to Starboars.
the best place for below average Star Wars.
Welcome to Starboars, the best place for below average Star Wars.
Hello there, and welcome to the Starboars Show, the best place for below average Star Wars. We're back with another of our Knowing Me, Knowing You, aha, special episodes. The Knowing Me, Knowing You special episodes started at the beginning of the lockdown, when the pandemic first took hold at the beginning of last year. We started them here at Starboars because we were worried about Star Wars news and thought the pandemic might shut down productions across the world. And although that did happen a little bit, little did we know that Star Wars news would still be flowing. But this series has been brilliant. We've been able to speak to Star Wars fans across the world and really deep dive into loads of different aspects of Star Wars with them. So without further ado, the guest for today's Knowing Me, Knowing You is Charlotte from Skytalkers. Charlotte, how are you doing?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. So happy to be here.
Thank you very much for coming on. Obviously, you are the second Sky Talker we have had.
Yeah.
And I just want to say thank you very much for coming on. Obviously, like I say it a couple of times, but obviously, like in my opinion, Sky Talkers, the podcast that you do with Caitlin, is fantastic. It's one of the best Star Wars podcasts on the planet. So thank you for spending some time with me today and coming on this podcast.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you saying that. Caitlin had such a great time when she came on last time, so I'm really excited to be on the show this time.
Obviously, you know, the pandemic's starting to come to an end, which is a really, really good thing. Doesn't mean that I'm going to end this series, but you know, it does mean the reason why I started this series is coming to an end. Obviously, vaccinations are rolling out, and I hope anybody listening, if you get offered one, please go and take it. It really will help us get this virus under control faster and allow us to get back out there doing the things we love quicker, whether it be Star Wars conventions, whether it be going to the cinema to see, you know, an awesome movie, whether that just be going out and enjoying some beers and some food with your friends. Obviously, Charlotte, I know you have been vaccinated, and I know that you are similar to me, where you are maybe a little bit nervous about vaccinations, would be safe to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I am really squeamish when it comes to shots and anything like that, but this one was like the easiest vaccine shot I've ever gotten in my entire life. I usually faint and get sick, and it was I usually have a really bad reaction at the end of it. And this time I was like, I'm great. Let's go. I didn't even feel like I needed to wait in the 30-minute observation room. So it was really an easy shot. I only got one. I'm in between, so I have to get the second one in a couple weeks. But honestly, I am not like scared of the second shot at all as much as I was in the first one, because it was such an easy process. It was like the quickest shot I've ever gotten in my entire life.
Yeah, I'm sort of, I think mine's more of a phobia. So like, even as a kid, couldn't watch them on television, and like, so I sort of shy away when I see them on screen on real life. Almost like the image of them I'm scared of. I know they don't hurt, but it's just, I don't know, something about the idea of them. And like when for example, when I'm having blood taken, I can do like 2 vials, but then I sort of like white out, so I'm essentially going to faint. So, but because of the way you saying you had your COVID vaccine, it has made us feel a little bit better about that.
Oh, I'm glad.
Is yours just about actually getting the shot? Or are you okay watching them on television? Or
No, no, it's not just me. I'm getting better as an adult, but when I was younger, it was like every time I would watch that show Grey's Anatomy, I would love it for the drama, but I'd just hide under a blanket anytime anything medical ever happened, which is like 70% of the show. So, yeah, I can't really do it on TV either.
Yeah, it's like I remember watching like A New Hope when I was younger, and like the thing that scared us the most wasn't Darth Vader, but it was the torture droid that it insinuated it's going to stab Princess Leia with a needle.
Yes. I always was like, oh my God, I don't want to think that one through, because I feel like the movie doesn't really give you a huge opportunity to be like, what is happening to Leia? That's a weird thing. Like the way that it zooms in on the needle, you know? And if I thought too much about it, I'd be like, nope, don't want to think about that. That's a no.
No, definitely. So I'm glad that that's the only real needle we'll see in Star Wars. So that is good.
Yes.
So have you got 5 questions lined up for me, Charlotte? This is how it works. I have 5 questions to ask you, and you have 5 questions to ask me. Although, as the host, I do usually sneak in a couple of extra ones.
Yeah, I do. I'm excited.
Awesome, cool. So I will go first, and we'll just go backward and forwards on it. But it is knowing me, Peter, knowing you, Charlotte. Aha! So my first question for you, Charlotte, is obviously, I know you're a food enthusiast and you do work within the sort of the food cooking industry. I know you've been to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, which I think it was in Disneyland. Which are some of the best items of food and drink, sort of on Batuu, that you've enjoyed?
Okay, so I love the Ronto wrap. I think the Ronto wrap is amazing. It's basically, I don't know if you've had it before, but it's basically just like a grilled pita with a sausage inside. It's kind of a little bit spicy, but it's like a charred sausage with some slaw, a slice of ham, and I think that's basically it. It's awesome. It's like the best hot dog ever. And I guess another thing, I really like the drinks there too. Like in Disney World, you can get the green milk with tequila in it, which is really fun. And I like the green milk. I also like the blue milk, but I think that's great. And then they have I also really like at the main restaurant, Docking Bay. I can't remember what the number is. The Docking Bay restaurant, they have this cavatelli pasta with short rib and cipollini onions and kale, which is really good. And all of the juices are really great too. I actually really love the food in Batuu.
I've not been yet, but I'm really looking forward to hopefully getting out there. Hopefully going to combine Celebration Anaheim with a trip to Disney.
I think you have to. I think you have to. If you end up going, I think that would be awesome. Okay. Is this where I ask you my question?
So I've just got a little I just want to mention something else on the back of that. So
yeah,
obviously, how does that, obviously, like Disney's known for having great food throughout all its parks. How does the sort of this food in Galaxy's Edge sort of match up to the rest of Disney? Is it like just as awesome? And do you think they managed to tie it in, like making Star Wars enough, like to be in Galaxy's Edge?
Well, I think that's a really good question, because I think the food in Disney is like the best food in any theme park. Like it's way better than Universal Studios. It's way better than like Knott's Berry Farm or Six Flags or something like that, a major theme park in the United States. And places are better. Like within Disney World, there's like better places than others. Like some are just like hamburgers and fries, but others are really kind of creative. And I mean, I don't think it really is like a 5-star meal anywhere, but I think Disney does a really good job of like exploring different flavors, and it's pretty impressive. Like they even have a food and wine festival where they have different types of food in Epcot that are represented by the different countries around Epcot. But in terms of whether or not the food in Batuu is Star Warsy enough, I think it is, but I think that they could definitely do more to the weirdness. I think that, but maybe people are kind of turned off by that, which I totally get. But I think that like some of the even the titles of some of the names are like really deep dives into Star Wars canon. Like at at Oga's Cantina, like they even have the Tanneray wine, which is mentioned only in books, which I think is really interesting. And I think that I think they need like another restaurant in Batu, and then they could be even weirder. But it is really good, and I'd say it's the best in Hollywood studios aside from at least in Disney World, aside from like a couple of like nicer restaurants that are there. But in Disneyland, the food in Disneyland is really good too. So it's just overall, you're eating and drinking a lot when you're there, and it's all great. And I don't know, I guess I would want it to have more variety, I suppose. But overall, I give it a 10 out of 10.
Awesome. And then a little bonus question. If you could be part of one meal that is depicted in the Star Wars story, which of these three would you pick? Would it be Anakin and Padme in their pear meal? Would it be Luke and Yoda in the Mud Hut meal? Or would it be Rey's quarter portion Sunset Jakku meal?
So I definitely choose Anakin and Padme's meal with the pear and everything. Is that what that's the one you chose, right? Or was it the picnic?
So yeah, it's the pear meal. Yeah.
Yeah, the pear meal is definitely what I would choose because I feel like all the other ones are like kind of sad. This one is at least it's like a 5-star 5-course meal. I think it would be a little weird to be like the third wheel there, but I still think that would be really nice.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of tension in that scene where it would be very awkward sitting sort of in the middle of them.
Yeah.
But maybe the food would be worth it.
Yeah.
What's your first question for myself?
Okay. So my first question is, where were you when you heard about the Disney purchase of Lucasfilm?
So I was actually at work. So I worked for a cinema chain in the UK at the time, and I was just on shift in a cinema. And I wasn't even that bothered. It's quite weird, and I don't think I've spoke about it on the podcast actually. But so obviously, Revenge of the Sith comes out, and that's sort of the final Star Wars movie we're going to get, and it's the end. And then I remember when this news came out and hearing about it and just thinking, meh. Like I wasn't too bothered either way. If that makes sense. It's a strange one, but it wasn't until, and that's how I felt for a long time. I just wasn't too bothered. And then I was working a different job. I was working away, so I was actually working up in Scotland, and I was in my hotel room. When I think it would have been where did the first trailer debut? Was it San Diego Comic-Con or was it Celebration for Force Awakens?
I think I think it was at first. The teaser came out at Celebration, and Celebration in Anaheim.
So like I was in Scotland when that broke. My Twitter sort of blew up. Now, bear in mind, I'm not in fandom at this point, but Twitter's going berserk about the new Star Wars trailer.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of I clicked it to watch it. And obviously this is the trailer where you see it's sort of the subtle Star Wars undertones. You see Rey on the speeder go past the downed X-Wing, and in the background you have the Star Destroyer that's down. I think it also might be the one with I don't know if Luke Skywalker has dialogue about the Force in it, possibly. But I watched that trailer about probably 50 times that night. And then that was me back in, all in. I went from being fully out to just being a Star Wars fan again, if that makes sense.
Totally. I was always a really big Star Wars fan, but I feel like something shifted when that trailer landed, because we had something to grasp onto that was going to be amazing and like brand new, you know? Yeah, wow. It was, I want to go back to that time. I'm really nostalgic for it now.
Yeah, definitely. I think like it's that time where like you know it's coming, but you don't know what it is. So it's like everything you're experiencing is sort of new,
Mm-hmm.
and like you kind of beat that excitement. But now, sort of the saga's finished, it's sort
Totally.
of not the same. Yeah, but yeah. So like I said, when I heard the news about the actual acquisition, I wasn't really that bothered, and I didn't really think about what it could mean. But here we are. You know, we've had a new Star Wars trilogy. We've had new animated shows. We've got a theme park. And I never would have thought that, but it's just, you know, I've got a Star Wars podcast now. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I never would have thought like that day when I heard the news about the acquisition. Like, I was literally just maybe giving a moment's thought and then just like moved on with my day.
Totally.
Whereabouts were you when you found out?
So I was with my friends at Starbucks and I wasn't answering my phone. And Caitlin was like frantically calling me. And then when I heard the 15 messages she left on my phone about her like spiraling and freaking out about the Disney purchase and the fact that there were going to be more Star Wars films and they were going to be doing the sequel trilogy, I like had a breakdown. I was sobbing, crying in my dorm room in college. And it was just really funny to me that I'm like always on my phone, and it was like the one time I wasn't like attached to my phone, and it was purposeful. I was like enjoying myself, and of course, like the biggest news ever landed, and I wish I had those messages of Caitlin freaking out on my phone, and I bet I could find them somewhere if I went back to my older phones. But oh my god, it was like an life altering moment for sure.
I think I was on like the metro, which is like public transport up here in the northeast of England, when they dropped the title plaque for The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
So like not only was it The Last Jedi revealed, but it was also like the red writing.
Yes.
And I remember like freaking out on the metro train. Like I was on my own. You probably see people thinking, "What is he doing?" I was like probably shuffling like uncontrollably and like texting my people I couldn't, trying to ring people on this train. It's crazy what just a little bit of Star Wars news can do, isn't it?
Totally. It really does give you some much needed serotonin, I'd say.
100%, yeah, 100%. I remember when this Solo trailer dropped. I think it must have dropped at like it dropped like early morning here in the UK, like in the night when we were asleep.
Oh yeah, because it was during the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so I
So that was
remember.
at like 10 p.m. On East Coast side.
Yeah, so I remember waking up at like 2 or 3 in the morning. And was like watching this trailer in bed, and like my fiance woke up. It was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "The Solo trailer just dropped." And she was like, "Have you watched it?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm watching it again." And she's like, "Why?" I was like, "And it's obviously the trailer where you see the Star Destroyers and the lightning storm in
Yeah,
the
so
cloud."
cool.
And I was like, "Look at that, the Star Destroyer and the lightning storm," and like I couldn't stop saying it. And then like obviously she was very annoyed because it was like, "I'm ruining everybody's sleep here." But yeah, like it's crazy how just how much of a buzz it gives you, but then also like you sort of just want to share it with people around you and people you know. It's just like you can't really beat that. I don't know if it's adrenaline or what, but that just feeling of awesomeness that you get from it.
Totally.
My next question for you, Charlotte, is obviously I know you've lived in both the UK and the USA.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of, I'm not. I assume you were a Star Wars fan when you were in the UK, yeah?
Yeah.
Sort of, do you notice much difference to like the amount of Star Wars sort of on the streets in stores, on people's backs? Like, sort of, is there a difference to you think? And
That's a good question. I I lived in London in 2007 and we left in 2009, like late 2009. So we were there for like 2.5 years. And between then, that was when I was like watching the Clone Wars television show because it had just launched illegally on the internet. And But like when I first moved there, they had this like awesome exhibit that Caitlin and I have talked about before, right by the London Eye. That was the Star Wars costumes exhibit. I feel like it was I don't think it was called the Star Wars costumes exhibit. I think now it's called that. And it was this amazing exhibit. And I remember being like, when we first moved there, I felt so out of sorts, like, oh my God, my family moved to like a new country that I know nobody, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And seeing that was there and advertised everywhere, I was like, oh my God, this is great. This is going to be awesome. Something I love is here. And I know it's like, that's such a silly little thing to attach to, but I was like 13 and I was really excited to have that. And in terms of like, whether or not Star Wars, like if there's a difference, it's really hard for me to quantify that because I think after the Disney purchase, I feel like I see Star Wars everywhere now, like so much more than I ever used to. And it's not that I didn't see it in England as much in the UK, but I don't remember it as much. Like I think always I was like, oh my God, like a little Star Wars reference there when I was younger and things like that. But like an example is for 1 year, I went to school actually out by Pinewood Studios, like basically on the same street. And I had no idea that I was like so close to Pinewood and Elstree Studios where Star Wars was filmed. And I feel like I wish I had known that. Not that I could do anything about it because it's not like I can visit or anything, but it's, it was like I was so close to a piece of Star Wars history and I actually had no idea. I don't know. I think that there's a major difference now and then versus country to country, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think obviously Star Wars was sort of on it, although Clone Wars was out during those years.
Yeah.
Like that was probably all that was out. So I've noticed here that, like, for example, if you go to the US, your big supermarket chains, like your Walmart, your Targets, have like a lot of awesome Star Wars merchandise. Where here in the UK, you have to tend to go to like specialist sci-fi stores to get the good stuff.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I remember that actually. But I was also like, we don't really have, except for like comic book stores here, we don't have like specialized stores like I guess some places do, but they're not as frequent as they are in London, I guess. I feel like you could always find something weird and wild that has to do with Star Wars in London, at least.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've got a market in Newcastle called the Granger Market, and inside that there's a little dealer who sells memorabilia, and he, like, you'll always find something in there that's weird and wonderful. So like I picked up like a 1983 Weequay skiff guard like last week in there.
Oh, so cool.
Like just unboxed, but like loose. But and then there's another stall which is like, I think it's trying to be sort of like a toy museum, but that bit's not open yet. But it's just a little stall inside a market, and like it's really crammed and like there's figures everywhere on the shelves. There's figures up on the roof, and then in there like managed to pick up like a Zam Wessel sneak peek for Attack of the Clones, and then I also picked up the it's the Power of the Force. It's the Yoda from 1998, but it comes with a flashback photo where it's Yoda and Dagobah, and you pull it down and it reveals Yoda the puppet from Phantom Menace.
Cool, that's awesome.
So yeah, little things you can find that you wouldn't find in a normal store.
Totally.
What's your next question for me?
Okay, so what would be your dream Star Wars animation project?
Ooh. I think for me, we've had a tease of this in the comics, especially in the Rise of Kylo Ren comic. The beginning of that comic where it sort of shows you Luke on these adventures. He's with Lors Anteca, with Ben Solo, and the tracking down Force artifacts. I think that would be a fantastic animated series because Mark Hamill can do the voice of young Luke, no problem, and you don't need to worry about how he looks. I think you could really explore some crazy planets and planets we know as well. and obviously with animation, you can make them look as vibrant and as crazy as you can with certain styles. I think like Lord Anteca hints at the beginning of Force Awakens that like, he knows who Luke is. He knows the Skywalkers quite well. Obviously, if you read the Poe Dameron comic book, you know that he does have a connection to them. And he's worked with Luke in the past, so I'd love to see more of those tales, like in the build-up before Luke decides to build his Jedi school. Sort of what type of adventures does he go on? It's also hinted at in the Battlefront 2 campaign. Luke, when he picks up that Force compass, he's obviously doing that quite a bit. It's also in the Shattered Empire comic as well, when he takes those Force trees from one of the Emperor's conservatories. So I think like it's been hinted at, but I would love a series that shows you sort of Luke Skywalker, trying to find his place in this galaxy now. Obviously, we do know that Mon Mothma does sort of ridicule. Well, I wouldn't say ridicule, but perhaps ridicule the Jedi. Like, oh yeah, thank you for defeating Vader and sorting out the Emperor for us. But like now, we don't want the Jedi involved in this New Republic. Or is that how it went down? Is it not how it went down? Maybe we can find out in this animated series.
Totally. You basically took my answer, because that's exactly my answer too. Is I think that after recently watching the original trilogy again, I was overwhelmed by how much I need more stories of Luke, Leia, and Han, and I want to see Luke continuing to be a Jedi leader, and how that even looks. And you're right, like there's been hints and everything throughout comics and books and everything, but I still think you're right that we could get Mark Hamill back with doing the voice. I mean, hello, he does such great voices. So that would be my dream as well. Even with Ben Solo, I think that would be amazing.
Yeah, I think with Ben Solo, I would just love to have it. It wouldn't be animated, because let's just face it, we've got Adam Driver in the prime of his life right now. But that's like the live action series I would want would be sort of Ben Solo in between, sort of after the events of the Kylo Ren comic, like the Rise of Kylo Ren, and sort of from there to where we meet him in the Force Awakens. I think that will be a fantastic. We'll never get it, but that'll be a fantastic series as well.
Totally. I completely agree. We need it.
We do. Give us it. If you could easily give us those two shows and charge me an extra $50 for Disney Plus a year, and I'd pay it.
Yeah, same. Same.
Disney, if you're listening, take our money.
Absolutely.
My next question for you, Charlotte, is about casting crew, sort of meeting them. Obviously, you've met Adam Driver, is that correct? Outside of his playhouse?
I did, yeah, for the briefest moment. Yeah.
Do you want to tell us about that?
Sure. So I saw Burn This on Broadway, which is a play that was really intense, with Adam Driver was in it, and so was, what's her name? Oh my gosh. She was just in Rise of Skywalker.
Is that Carrie Russell?
Carrie Russell, yes. I don't know why that completely. I'm like halfway through my coffee. That's why. So they were on stage together in this play called Burn This, and when that was announced, I immediately got tickets. I dragged my friend with me, and definitely waited at the stage door for him to sign my playbill. And Carrie Russell came out too, and she was so nice. And her husband, I'm a huge fan, even though I couldn't remember her name. I'm a huge fan of hers from The Americans, which is a great show. And so I was really excited. And her husband is her husband on the show, The Americans. So seeing both of them was like, oh my God. And then Adam Driver came out and signed autographs and like shook my hand and was really nice. I have like a live photo of him making eye contact with me, which is great. But I sound like an obsessed fan when I talk about this, because really it was just like 30 seconds of my life, but it was a great 30 seconds of my life.
It's how did so like I once met John Cena in a restaurant here in Newcastle.
Yeah.
And like I was in the restaurant having food. He was in the restaurant having food. I was with my friend. And And like he clocked us, and like we clocked him, and you could tell in his mind he was thinking them two are wrestling fans. And then me and my friend's eyes like, that's John Cena, and you could tell it was awkward. Where like he was like, please don't come over, or they're going to come over. And obviously we didn't go over because he was eating his meal. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
But like, but we never got a picture or anything. But it's just like that awkward stamp out. It's like, oh, like that's John Cena over there. Like he's like
Totally.
the biggest wrestler of the past decade, and like he's just over there having some food type of thing.
Yeah. Totally.
You also met the cast and crew of Resistance in Chicago.
Yeah. Caitlin and I were getting deep dish pizza at a place called Luminati's in Chicago at Celebration, and you have to wait for your table. There was a ton of people there, and in comes the entire cast of of Star Wars Resistance, which we had been watching and loving and had a whole podcast series about and everything. And we were like overcome and starstruck, but we shot our shot and we talked with basically everyone except for like Bobby Moynihan, and got a picture with Christopher Sean, and it was awesome. That was like one of those only happens at Star Wars Celebration moments. And yeah, that was great.
Yeah, I love Star Wars Celebration. The London Celebration, which was 2016, I believe. Obviously, one of the cool things about that was a lot of the people there weren't sort of like in the bubble as much as we are.
Yeah.
So like, I bumped into Dave Filoni on the Celebration London floor,
Oh my god.
and like there was nobody, like no one really turned ahead. It was
Oh my god.
some people dressed as the Rebels cast.
Yeah.
Yeah, so some people dressed as the Rebels cast got a picture with him, and then like I got a picture with him. But then like nobody else was gathering around this man. They're probably thinking, "Who's this man in the hat?" And I was able to get a picture with him. He was lovely. I asked him a question about Cabby, and that he thought about, then sort of give a, as Dave does, like a half answer. But it was such a cool moment where like, you know, like you see this person who you've seen on Rebels recap shows and like all that stuff, you know, and all the Clone Wars documentaries, and then like you see him in person and just be able to like grab a picture and speak to them. Like it really does sort of, again, that gives you like a type of adrenaline flowing through your system when that happens.
Totally. It really does.
Obviously, I know you and Caitlin got the interview. Was it the Vader Immortal crew, like officially?
Yeah, we did. That was great. We got to speak to 3 people who worked on that series, and which is incredible. Even I've never played it. Like I don't have an Oculus Quest or PlayStation or anything like that, but I've watched the clips online, and the story itself is just incredible. And we got to speak with them at the D23 Expo in Anaheim in 2019. That was incredible, and it was great to talk with them. And that included Matt Martin of the Lucasfilm Story Group, and that was awesome.
Which do you think is gives you more nerves? Sort of you're going to be meeting these people in an official capacity with a job to do, or sort of the waiting to see them by chance and reacting?
So I would say definitely the official capacity, because it's going to be pushed out to a lot of people. And I think before we did the Vader Immortal interview, Caitlin and I were so nervous. We were like rehearsing, because when you do these kind of like press junkety type interviews, you really only have like 15 minutes, and you sit down and you have to start right away and everything. So we were like really stressed about that. When you meet celebrities, like you have like butterflies in your stomach, but it's really just for you, and you want to make sure that you ask them or you talk with them, tell them what they mean to you and everything like that. But with like doing it in an official capacity, like a recorded interview, there's all of that, plus making sure that you make like a solid product to put out to your podcast audience, you know? So there's a little bit more pressure.
Yeah, definitely. What's your next question for me?
Okay. So if you could know one secret from Star Wars and Lucasfilm, what would it be?
Ooh. During obviously the Empire Strikes Back, you know, we hear the stories about how, you know, in the script, the line was Obi-Wan killed your father.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, like, some people knew that that was not the line. And like, I would love to know like who knew, and like who was in charge of keeping the secret, and like who was in charge of letting people who need to know. And like, I would love to be involved in that circle, because I bet it was quite scary and tense, being like, right, this can't get out, this can't get out. So I think being involved in that circle, being a fly on the wall and seeing sort of the panic and like, oh well, like for example, Mark Hamill might know, but like who else knows? I think that would be cool. I think I would love to know, and not even from like I would love to know like the conversation between Lucasfilm and Colin Trevorrow, like about him deciding to leave.
Yeah.
Because like it's not really clear as to why. But obviously, the script's leaked for Jewel of the Face, which to be honest with you, I haven't read, I haven't delved into it. But obviously, it's apparent he left the project, and then they brought in new people to make a different episode 9, like a totally different movie. So I just love to know like why, the reasons why. Is it because it happened after the passing of Carrie? So was it because of the way Carrie was going to be in his movie, and he just thought he couldn't go forward with it, or was it because of? I seriously doubt it, but was it because of the way a small but loud section of the fandom reacted to sort of The Last Jedi? Was it a case of Colin walking away, or was it a case of the company wanting him to walk away? Like, I would just love to know the ins and outs of that.
Yeah, me too. I really want, it's hard for me to answer this question because I really just want to know like a lot of background information about what goes on behind the scenes. Like, I want to know if the Rian Johnson trilogy is still happening and like where we are with that. Like, I want to level set, But I'm with you in that, wanting to know about Colin Trevorrow and like how they went their separate ways, because it's interesting because Kathleen Kennedy's husband is the producer of Jurassic World, and Colin Trevorrow does all the Jurassic World movies. And it doesn't seem like there's like any ill will there, but maybe it just wasn't the right fit. But it's still, I just really want some more background information about like the drama that happens. And I'm not saying that I think that there's like a narrative that like there's so much drama within Lucasfilm. I'm not really talking about that. I'm just talking about like film history and like how things are made. I want to know a little bit more behind the scenes of the sequel trilogy and certain movies, and including Rogue One. Like, I want to know more about that first cut of Rogue One that was apparently totally changed to the end. I think there's like some parts that are out there, but not that much. And that same sentence goes for Solo as well. Like, what is in the original Solo and what was Ron Howard's version of Solo, and like where do they converge and where are they different?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's been like three sort of changes in this new era, where I think, if you go back to the era before Disney, when George is the president of Lucasfilm, it's like George is George, and George asks George what he wants to do, and then George tells I've forgotten his name now, the producer for the prequels. Oh,
Rick McCallum.
Yeah, Rick McCallum, yeah, and then
Yeah.
Rick McCallum sort of makes it happen, type of thing. And then you go from that to this new situation where it's like, well, yeah, Kathy's the president, but you also have, the Disney executives, including Bob Iger, who, Bob Iger is the most powerful man in the world. And then you have sort of all of that going on. And then you have, obviously, Kathy's not directing the movie. Kathy's hired someone to direct the movie, where in the past, George was like, I'm going to direct the movie. I've wrote 3, I'm going to direct 3. Before that, obviously, he didn't direct Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, but, if you hear stories of Return of the Jedi, where essentially George only didn't direct because he'd left the Directors Guild at that point, and Richard Marquardt pretty much was on set. I don't know if you want... It's weird, you hear stories, they say George actually directed the movie and Marquardt was just there to sort of cover for him, but it's a bit like, I think that maybe that could be seen as being a bit disrespectful to Richard Marquardt, which I don't want to do. But there's probably a hint of it there, like a hint of that being true.
Totally.
And then now obviously, you know, it's not a case of George is in charge and what George wants, George gets type of thing. It's many different pieces and many different opinions.
Yeah.
And you've got a sort of a board of directors, and you've got shareholders to look after. So yes, obviously, you know, we've had 3 of the projects have had like a little bit of production change. Some of them a lot of production change, and I don't think we'll ever get it in a book because I guarantee there's NDAs all over the place. I think like
Totally. You're so right.
Like you know, I guarantee that like the directors from Solo, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, I reckon they would have been paid off the project. And to be paid off the project, I think they would have been here's your money, but here's an NDA, you cannot talk about it. I think with Colin Trevorrow, obviously his film never really got started. He had the script finished, but other than that, like, you know, they then decided to go with a different script. So hopefully there's conversations with him about the ins and outs. But again, he's not going to say anything too bad because he's got a great relationship with Steven Spielberg and with Kathy's husband Frank Marshall, who he's still working with today. And then with the Gareth Edwards one from Rogue One, I think, you know, Gareth got on board with the changes and he came back and directed the final scene with Vader and then did all the press afterwards. So I think he's, you know, on board and part of the team. So I think when that's the thing is we're probably never going to, maybe like 20 years from now, we find out little snippets.
So true. I think we'll get like little snippets in the next like 20 years and we'll have to all piece them together in some like pastiche of what actually happened. I think you're right into talking about Richard Marquand because I feel like that was messy and I feel like we're only just now kind of uncovering how messy that relationship was too. And that was like a long time ago. So, and we really only got pieces of that from certain individuals' books. Like I remember one of Carrie Fisher's books really talked about that and her like clashing heads with Richard Marquand and things like that. And it's like that's where we can kind of piece it all together. It's really interesting.
Definitely. My next question for you is obviously, you know, me and you, we're both adult Star Wars fans now, even though we started as children Star Wars fans. You know, certain people in society say that, you know, as we get older, we should get out of Star Wars. But really, there's like a whole selection of merchandise where if you look at the price of this merchandise, for example, replica lightsabers or some Star Wars art books or making art books that have the price tags where you need a pretty steady job to sort of pay for it. So really, I would say, you know, there's merchandise out there for adults to collect. What are some of your favorite items that you've purchased like as an adult Star Wars fan?
As an adult Star Wars fan, first off, I want to say that my first big Star Wars purchase was Luke Skywalker's green lightsaber that I bought at Borders bookstore in 2006. And I still have it. The light has kind of broken, but that was for a long time my most prized and most expensive Star Wars possession. But now recently I got these like Japanese style Rey and Kylo Ren figures, like mini statuettes. I have never had a statuette ever, and it feels like a little bit of like a nerd rite of passage. Like once you reach like a certain age, you can buy one of these like maquettes or statuettes, whatever they're called. And I bought my first one, and I actually bought two, and I'm really happy with those purchases. That was like they were expensive. And I had been eyeing them since they were announced at Celebration, I think like in 2017, like a long time ago. And I was able to get them last year and it was awesome.
Yeah, I think I've got the Luke Skywalker Force FX lightsaber, the one from A New Hope. So essentially the one Anakin built that Luke has in New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. And I got that for my 22nd birthday off my mother, off my mum, because I've been asking for that type of lightsaber probably for like 10 years previous. And it was weird how like it took those 22 for me mum to go, oh yeah, I'll buy you that. And I was like, well,
Yeah.
you're sort of supporting me as an adult Star Wars fan here by making that purchase. And like, even now she'll be like, oh, like, you don't need to buy them figures, or like, you don't need to watch Star Wars too much. I'm like, as a 22-year-old, you bought me that lightsaber for like £130, man. Like, you supported this.
Yeah, absolutely. I relate to that so much. My question actually for you, my next question was, what is your most prized Star Wars possession? Which I feel like is a similar question, but not necessarily the same question. Like, is there something that you really love that you have from like a Star Wars possession that isn't necessarily the most expensive thing or the nicest thing, but it could be that as well? What's yours?
So I bought my house like October last year.
Awesome.
And so my mom like emptied the like the attic out. And to be fair, I think there's still stuff up there that she hasn't found. But I forgot what was up there, to be fair. It's like a couple of boxes arrived from my mum's house of like things when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So like my 90s Millennium Falcon,
Awesome.
which I'm looking at right now in my office, it smashed to bits. Like it got heavily played with. But like that's sitting there. My 90s X-Wing, Canard X-Wing, which is actually in really good condition actually. That's here, which they're not worth a lot because they're not the 80s versions or the 90s versions, but I said the Falcon smashed to bits, but it's like I look at them and I'm like yeah, like I've had that since I've had that Falcon since probably 94 maybe.
Right.
Like when I first started watching Star Wars around that time, so it's like sort of being with us on the entire journey, so to get those back was pretty cool. What else? I've got a couple of Star Wars plates that my mum bought me from I don't even know where she got them from, but when I was like maybe 12, 13, which I don't even know where they are actually. They're probably at my mum's house still. Like the Star Wars plates were like sort of metallic, and they've got like Star Wars artwork on them. One's an X-Wing, one's the trencher, and the Darth Vader's tie, and the two ties behind it. So they're pretty cool. Trying to think. As for, it's weird. There's things that like you've always wanted that don't even cost a lot. So like, I always wanted since I've seen them. Like the Disney badges you get at like at the Star Tour stand where they put your name in Arabic.
Yeah, totally.
Like I finally got one of those like a couple of years ago at the Orlando celebration. So I was like, it's cheap and everyone's probably got one, but like it's something that like since I've seen them, I always wanted one, and I was able to get one. If that makes sense. So like that was pretty cool. I'm trying to think what else. What I really want like an original Revenge of the Jedi poster.
Oh, so do I. I really do.
So one day, maybe if I'm lucky, I'll get one of those. But that's like that's like my dream is I want one of those. Yeah, I've got Alec Guinness's autobiography, Blessings in Disguise, which is like a pretty old book, which I found in a charity store in the UK, but like it's out of print and stuff now. So that's pretty cool. It's hard to find, but it's not worth anything, I don't think. But yeah, so I haven't got anything like that's like too like super rare. I collect a lot of Black Series these days, so like I've had to slow down actually on the Black Series. But I sort of collecting the red boxes. I've decided to collect them up to the final number, and then the new boxes with the artwork on the side. I'm just collecting the ones I like. That's what I've said. But yeah, it's sort of, as I mentioned before, I picked up that Yoda figure, and like I remember those figures coming out, so like I'm sort of gone back to recollect things I had as a child, which is quite fun, and also they're not really that too expensive, so that's pretty cool. I'll tell you what I have got, which I don't know where it is. So my mum and dad know I've been into Star Wars. I got into it from my cousin, but my dad's best friend from childhood, he was like a big Star Wars nut, Brian, and he was actually at the Phantom Menace premiere.
Oh, cool.
I don't know how he got tickets, whether you could buy them or I mean, he worked high up for Burberry at the time, so I don't know, maybe he got connections through there. But
right, yeah.
But he gave me, they must have got given like it was like a silver white like program, like heavy duty like program,
Wow,
like
that's so
A4 size
cool. That's so
that he
cool.
that he gave me, and I don't know where it is because again he gave us it like in 1999, so it's somewhere. But yeah, like that's pretty cool because it's like when I got that, I was like, money can't buy this. Like this was, he had to got given this at the premiere, and I wasn't there, but like this guy was, and he's given us this, so I need to try and dig that out. To be fair,
Yeah, that you got to find that. That sounds great.
it's one of those things where. So when the boxes came from my mum's house and I opened them up, I was like, oh, I didn't realize I had this stuff left. And I started to think, actually, there's more than this there. And it's like, do I ask for it? Because if I ask for it, they're going to go through, dig it all out, and it's probably maybe double of that to come back over. And then, like I said, obviously I live with my fiancée now who's not really into Star Wars. And like, if more Star Wars comes, I mean, she wasn't too impressed with the stuff that came over the first time from my childhood. She's like, what is this? Like, why do you keep stuff like this? And I was like, oh, because it's awesome. But like, other people don't find a broken man fucking awesome. So I've sort of not mentioned it, and I'm waiting until like maybe they move house for it to turn up. Then I'll take it back then, because I don't want to risk everything coming at once. I've got to be strategic on that one. Okay, my next question for you is, what's your favourite force power and why?
You have really good questions. This, I feel like my favorite force power is whatever the heck was happening between the dyad of Rey and Kylo Ren, the like mind connection. But if we're gonna like separate that, I would say the force healing, I think, is an awesome thing that they introduced to Star Wars. And if you know me, you know that I don't really like The Rise of Skywalker that much. But I still think that introduction, which I guess was first in The Mandalorian anyway, makes so much sense to bring that in. And I guess it was around before, but to like bring to the forefront of Star Wars stories, I really like it. But I like that one, and I really like Rey and Kylo's force connection, world between worlds, whatever the heck that is with the dyad connecting their minds. I think it's perfect for story exploration.
Yeah, so I mean, what I've got written down is I think that I call it the Force Skype.
Yes.
So the Kylo Ren and Rey Force Skype. I think within the story, I think that's the greatest force power we've seen, because it really is used as like it's a major story point, and it really helps tell the story of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's probably my favorite use of a force power in regards to the plot and the story. I think like as a kid, and as a, even as a teenager, it'd be fair play with them, but like lightsaber battling and like doing the force push on each other and like people jumping back and stuff, and like that was a lot of fun to sort of to play around with. And I think like even now sometimes I find myself doing it. Like my fiance will give us an elbow where like we'll go in a supermarket and I'll like wave my hand as I go through the door, and like I do it without even knowing I've done, like as a reflex action really. So I think all the force powers really do like embed themselves in your skull, like continuing we've consumed this since we're kids, and they're all fun. But I think the force, for me, the force Skype, the force bond between Kylo and Rey, I think is the best use of power to drive a story forward. I think the singular most powerful use of a force power is, of course, Luke Skywalker at the end of The Last Jedi.
Yeah. It's the coolest thing ever.
And I don't know if you've read the Last Jedi comic book.
I don't think I did, actually.
So it's if you can get a hold of it, pick it up and trip it back, and just for the final panels. So the final panels, right? I find this fascinating. Like I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. It's like Luke sitting on the rock meditating, and then it's got like the thought bubble, and it's like any master would tell you, you always save your greatest trick till last. And then like uses the greatest force power ever, and it's going to kill him, but it's going to save the rebellion, essentially. Wow. Save the resistance. Wow. And I don't know, those thought bubbles and the way it's laid out on the page, I was like, this is like, because I love The Last Jedi, I think it's a beautiful film, but I think like obviously you can't do thought bubbles in movies, but like I thought to sort of get that same feeling in the different medium, I thought the way the comic book did it with those thought bubbles and those words that he's thinking is just perfection.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I need to check that out. I really want to buy like basically every comic adaptation of the films bound like in a book versus what is it called? Like a volume. I'm really bad with comic terminology, but I really want to get that, and that's a really good recommendation.
Yeah, some comics that be released like in issues, like weekly or fortnightly or maybe monthly. So like typically you get 6 issues in a run.
Yeah.
I tend to buy trade paperback, so that's like a volume, so it'll be in
Yes.
paperback, but it'll collect the 6 or 7 or however many are in that first run.
Right. That's what I just like really struggle with that terminology for some reason. The whole trade paperback thing feels so, I don't know. Like I always forget what it's called.
But yeah, so Force powers. For me, I wasn't really that sort of turned on by the Force healing because I don't know why my mind went back to sort of if this is known about him, the Jedi can do it. I don't know why Anakin's worried about losing Padme.
Yeah. But maybe that's like part of, I think that's why I like it, because it's like part of like the lack of foresight, and maybe part of why the Jedi themselves were really clouded in their understanding of how the Force works, and like didn't really get back to what the original Force teachings were, like what Rey learned in those Jedi books, you know. And I think that like presents an interesting dilemma about the Jedi that we see in the prequels versus the Jedi that we see in like later years, and how Rey is able to learn this because she's not afraid of exploring different types of Force, I don't know, different types of like ways to use the Force. And it also to me shows that, like, I think I always think about that scene in Revenge of the Sith, which I think is a really interesting one, where Anakin goes to Yoda for help about his dreams. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's kind of interesting that Anakin does that in the first place, because he doesn't even want to tell Obi-Wan about his bad dreams, you know. And Yoda's advice is kind of curt, you know. It's not. It's like just like, oh, but Anakin isn't forthcoming about like what's the specifics of the dream are and why he can't do that and why he doesn't want to do that. And there's a lot going on there, but maybe if Yoda was just a little more, or like if everyone was a little bit more communicative, maybe they could have found that out themselves or something. It just really shows the tragedy of it all.
Yeah, I was just thinking that myself as you were talking there, like the tragedy of, so because Anakin feels like because it's all a secret,
Mm-hmm.
like if Anakin came forward and said like, look, like this is Padme, I love her, she's my wife, I think she might die, then maybe the Jedi will be, oh well, we'll help you look, and then they might come across that themselves, the Force healing. But because it's like, well, I'm having these dreams that I'm not really going to tell you about, and like, and there's no one else in my life but the Jedi, but really there is, but I'm not going to tell you about it. Like, it's that tragedy of like, in not trusting anybody really, and it's like, it's, well, a big part of his downfall, isn't it? I mean, the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker is that, you know, those people who love him and would do anything for him. I think, have you read the Obi-Wan Anakin one shot?
Yeah, I have. Yes. It's been a while, but yes, I have.
It's like in there when Obi-Wan's like, if Anakin leaves the Order, I would leave with him and still teach him because I promised Qui-Gon. It's like, you can't get much more love than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But he doesn't really see that, and that's like, it's like one of his fatal flaws is his clouded vision. Really, Anakin's, it's like haunted by the dark side, really, I suppose. Which, you know, is that being projected on him by Palpatine? I don't know.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I feel like something that's so great about these movies, and I've said this 1,000 times, and this is like no surprise to anyone listening, but I find it so interesting that we can have these conversations and talk about all these different ways that like new things that are introduced, like the Force bond and Force healing and projecting yourself across the galaxy like Luke does. Like, how does that affect the previous movies, and what does that show about the Jedi that we know from that era versus the era that we're in now? And how have they evolved? It's great to be able to talk about that.
Definitely, yeah. I think like, and when even if you just, I think Duke of Jedi Lost, where, you know, they've got all those artifacts hidden in the vault, but they won't go in. You get wrong for going in. But it's like you could learn from those. Like, even if they say artifacts, you could learn maybe things not to do from them, like, but you could learn, like, study them. But it's like sitting on, like, sort of suppressing the past or suppressing history that they don't want repeated or don't want people knowing about. It's, I don't know, it's quite, I love the Jedi, but I also like in particular, like, the way Mace Windu goes on, especially in the final days of the Republic. It's like, do you deserve it? I think you do a little bit, because you've been very blind and very arrogant about all of this.
Totally.
But this podcast is fast going on a tangent of the Jedi and the Sith. Have you got any more questions for me? I can't remember.
I do. I have one more. And I guess this kind of goes with what we were talking about even just a little bit. What do you think is next, in your opinion, for stories with the Skywalker family? Besides, like, seeing Anakin in the Kenobi show.
Yeah. It's a tough one, because I think if Ben Solo lives, like, you
kind of writes
like,
itself.
you write itself in the future,
Yeah.
and you've got, like, another trilogy, or maybe you've just got, like, a 6-part drama that you release that shows you, like, him sort of dealing with his sins of the past and how he sort of tries to make better decisions in the future. How where do him and Rey go, the future of the Jedi Order, all of that type of stuff. Obviously, the last Skywalker is dead. Rey's took the Skywalker name, but I think they're reluctant to tell stories in that era right now. So I think, like, you're really only going to get Skywalker stories, I think, in comics and books. So I think, obviously, you've got the Star Wars comic, the minutes running between Empire and Jedi, which is pretty cool. I've read the first volume, which was fun. But again, it's Luke. It's not necessarily Luke in the future. It's like a Luke in the past, filling in a few bits out of mist in between episodes 5 and episode 6. I think that's probably what we're going to have to put up with. I mean, don't get us wrong, it's fun, it's a good story, but it's not like a new era, if that makes sense.
Totally.
So I think that's sort of what we're going to get Skywalker wise. Like I said, I would love to have an animated show where it shows you Luke in between, sort of Luke in the first 5 years after Return of the Jedi. I think that would be a fantastic series. Like, give us it animated, or give us it in a comic book even. I'm happy to read it, if you don't want animated. But, like, it will lend itself so much to a comic or to an animated series. And, like, as I said before, like, that's a story I really want to know. I think as for Leia, it's sort of been, if you read Bloodlines, you sort of know the journey she goes on. Although, Rise of Skywalker hints at this Jedi training that she did with Luke. How long was that? Was it a year? Was it 2 years?
Yeah.
Can we maybe get a book or a comic or a series that shows us the 1 or 2 years Jedi training Leia did with Luke, and then it ends with Leia handing Luke the lightsaber, saying, actually, if I continue on this path, it ends with the death of my son, which, she doesn't go down that path, and then it still ends with the death of her son. So was it all for nothing? You could say, maybe.
Yeah, totally. I think there's so many possibilities, but you're so right that I feel like they're going to explore the period between the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy, but not much after, for a little bit. And then I think they'll go after, maybe around the time of, because Patty Jenkins's movie Rogue Squadron allegedly takes place after The Rise of Skywalker, so maybe that will be the point where they start filling that in. I always think about how when Disney bought Lucasfilm, there was all this conversation about, like, well, we have like 20 years between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope that we need to fill in. And that was like their first order of business of creating like Rebels and Rogue One and all these kind of, like, it's amazing where now we think about, like, oh my God, that era is so crowded with stories, but it really isn't anymore. I mean, it is now. But it wasn't back then. And I think they'll probably do the same thing as they are right now with The Mandalorian and everything in the next era of expansion. And it'll be interesting to see how the Skywalker family fits into that, because I think we already have seen the fact that Luke even somehow fits into the Mandalorian too. But I also agree with you about like with Rey and Ben, if Ben lived, I still think he's going to come back. It's just a matter of time. We'll see, you know. I think that provides like a super interesting story about like him returning and then what the Jedi look like after the Rise of Skywalker with Rey at the helm, you know.
Well, maybe Kylo Ren had loads of clones and then he's managed to get inside of the clones.
Don't no.
I'm just kidding. But no, yeah. It's obviously Bad Batch is coming out, which again is in that time frame what you said of between 3 and 4. So we're going to get even more detail there, which is cool. And obviously we've seen talking in the trailer there, which is fun. But yeah, I don't know. Do you think we'll see Luke again in The Mandalorian, or do you think him and Grogu have vanished?
I think we will. I think we'll see him briefly, because I just can't imagine that they're gonna not have that they're gonna have a whole season without Grogu. Like, I really just don't imagine that at all. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. So I think we'll see him again, but I don't know if we'll see Luke like get a star episode. I don't think so. But I do think we'll see him again.
Yeah, and obviously, people are saying, Grogu's gone to Luke's Jedi Academy, and that's where all the Jedi die by Kylo Ren. But it's like, this is years before that school even gets built, so like Luke doesn't have that academy yet. And if you read The Rise of Kylo Ren, Grogu's not there.
Mm-hmm.
When the temple falls.
Yeah, I feel like he's not going to last that long at the Luke school for the Jedi. I don't know what's going to happen to it, but that's my interpretation of what's going to happen.
Yeah. So I don't think Luke has the school. I think Luke picked them up because the call went out. But I think they're just going to go on like adventures together type of thing. I think, and try and teach him as he goes. But like, I don't think the school's an actual thing. So this is only 5-6 years after I returned the Jedi. I don't think the school gets set up until like, because even if you read Bloodlines, the school's not set up because Ben's journeying with Luke.
You're right.
In Bloodline, which is closer to the Force Awakens time, I think, isn't it? Than so yeah. Like I don't think the school's set up yet. I think like Luke's come to get him because the calls went out, but I don't think it'll be a school set up. I think it'll be like very much learning, sort of on adventures. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think you're so right. I hadn't really thought about that, honestly.
Yeah, that could be really fun animation, like Luke and Grogu on little adventures.
Ugh, that'd be so great.
Cool. So I've got 2 more questions for you, which are a little bit more fun, like silly ones. So, I hear you're a fan of dinner parties.
Yes.
So, if you were to have a dinner party where the goal is to have sort of really fun, awesome Star Wars conversation, you're allowed to invite 5 celebrity guests to your dinner party, but they are not allowed to have been involved in a Star Wars project.
Who would they be?
Yeah, who would you invite to your dinner party?
So people not related to Star Wars at all, just like in general, people.
So they can't have worked on a Star Wars project.
Okay. Oh man, this is a good question. Okay, so I'd invite Lucille Ball. Why was that the first person I thought of? That's interesting.
Why would they be your first invite?
I love Lucille Ball. I always have. Her show, I Love Lucy, was like my childhood, and I think she's still remains. She's long gone, but she remains like the best comedian ever, and I think she's brilliant. Always was brilliant, and would love to talk with her at a dinner. I just think she's unreal. Let's see. It's funny when these questions are asked because my brain is only Star Wars all the time, and I feel like there's actually so many people who've worked on Star Wars in the world, especially today. But I guess Maureen Murdoch, who wrote The Heroine's Journey, I'd love to talk with her. She hasn't worked on Star Wars. Let's see. I'm gonna cheat and say Steven Spielberg. He hasn't worked on Star Wars technically, right?
No, that's
But
allowed.
yeah. um Maybe Pablo Picasso. It's a random one. I really love art. I think he would be awesome, amazing, depressing to talk to. Would love that. And Coco Chanel. That's my five. It's so random, but I think it would be a really interesting dinner party.
Yeah, and imagine like some of those people who like maybe aren't familiar with Star Wars, but you could like introduce them to it and then get their thoughts on it.
Yes. Yeah, that would be great. I'd love to know what Lucille Ball thinks of Star Wars.
Yeah. Like especially when the Star Wars comedies, like especially in the original trilogy, is so subtle. Like it's essentially
Yes.
through C-3PO's sort of, I don't know what you would call it. These sort of C-3PO's would it be righteousness? No, maybe not. Like through C-3PO's like exactness, and then obviously you've got sort of like the rest of the team's sort of sarcasm towards that.
Mhm.
So like it would be interesting to see like people's take on that type of humor. For mine, I would have had mine's not as awesome as yours. You've got some really cool and like legendary people there. Mine would be I would want Kevin Smith,
Mhm.
who I'd want to know like obviously Star Wars is a big part of us, not a big part of it. It's there in his Clerk script, like quite heavily influenced like the conversations that are in there that make the movie so funny that sort of makes his career. So I think that would be really cool. Edgar Wright, who has made some great movies.
Yeah.
Obviously, big Star Wars fan as a youngster. I think that'd be good. I would love to have Ava DuVernay on, just as like a modern filmmaker,
Totally.
who's making some really sort of, pictures with a strong voice, and sort of her thoughts on what Star Wars did for her when she first watched it, and then also like sort of what she could do with it going forward if she's got any ideas. How many's that? 3 or 4? I've just said there.
I think that was 4, maybe.
4. One more. And I think like I don't know, maybe like a Brie Larson who like we've seen that she's maybe a Star Wars fan and like some of the things she says online and some of her pictures. And obviously she's a big part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I think like her thoughts on like what characters she would like to play or what future characters she can see coming into sort of Star Wars in the future, I think would be really cool. And how sort of as someone who plays Captain Marvel, who's like a this strong female lead hero character, sort of do you go back and study like the likes of Leia from the original trilogy as sort of picking up tropes of that to bring into how you portray these heroes, that type of thing would be really cool.
Totally.
Last question for you. Like, how does this idea sound to you? Would you be up for this, right? So it's a concept album, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's about it's an album that's just got songs on it, and it's filled with songs about Anakin's feelings throughout the prequel trilogy.
I am down for that. I'm down for that. I'm already signed up. Sounds good to me. Continue. Sorry.
I think Taylor Swift should write and sing it.
Oh my God. That's the dream. That is the dream. A Taylor Swift concept album that is narrative stories from Star Wars. Oh my God.
I think
that's
if
amazing.
You look at it like, so, as we know, like Fearless, Taylor's version, if Anakin was just fearless, would be all right, wouldn't it? But he wasn't, so.
Yeah.
The song Red lightsabers are the Sith, Anakin. Should have said no. Anakin had told Palpatine no. Would be fine. I think there's a track called, is it Sad, Beautiful, Tragic off of Red?
Yeah. Yes.
That title just sums up Star Wars, doesn't it? Sad, Beautiful, and Tragic.
Totally.
So yeah, I'll be up for that. I wouldn't have Taylor like Star Wars. She must like being like. So I'm So I think she's the same age as me, 32. So like, chances are like the prequels are out when she was a teenager. So I wonder if she is a fan
I
of.
bet she's a fan. I know she likes Game of Thrones, so I know that she has like that nerd gene in her. So I feel like I bet she likes it. I bet she would love it if uh I don't know. I feel like I'm faintly remembering that Daisy Ridley went to one of her parties once, and it was like disputed about whether or not that was her in the photo. So I have a feeling that she likes at least the new movies. I bet she really liked The Force Awakens.
Yeah. Have you enjoyed Fearless Taylor's version?
Yeah, loved it. All her recent albums have been amazing. I'm a huge Taylor Swift fan. Anything she does is perfect. So it's like hard for me to be a little critical these days because I think she's absolutely killing it.
I saw her live in Manchester. I can't remember what year it was now, but I think it was possibly the Speak Now tour.
Mm-hmm.
And it was weird. So the support for that tour was Justin Bieber. So he was like just started to get noticed on YouTube, I think.
Yeah.
He was the support, which he had a broken leg at the time. He was wearing a cast actually. But no, yeah, it was an awesome show. I'm a big Taylor fan myself. But yeah, I think. How do you feel about? I was thinking about this the other day. Because I know you're a Taylor Swift fan, so like how can I bring Taylor Swift in the conversation? You know, we've got these. You know, Taylor doesn't have access to her music or isn't happy with the musical arrangement with some of her old albums. So here she is now. She's doing her new version, her own version of Fearless.
Mm-hmm.
Could say it's a special edition, couldn't we?
Yes, we could. It is a special edition. Now she has like complete control over it in the same way that George Lucas had complete control over the special editions to make them exactly how they wanted. Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up. I thought about the idea. I thought I'm definitely going to mention this to Charlotte. But yeah, I think like
Yeah.
I wouldn't actually got the idea from George, or like I mean, she probably didn't, but it is very much like you have this vision, it's your art, you put your heart and soul into it, and then down the line, you maybe you're not 100% happy with it, maybe not 100% happy with the arrangement. So you know what, I'm gonna go back and recreate it, and put it back out there.
Totally. Yeah, I'm really happy that she did that. I think it's such a power move for her to be able to do that and then therefore own her own music once again. It's pretty awful what happened to her, and I think that she has done exactly what she should do, and it's been really cool to see like her fans really embrace like the new versions versus the older ones and kind of support her in that journey. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And then you also have like it's weird. So I've just said on that Speak Now tour was probably like 10 years ago now, like roughly. So you'll have fans who like there'll be teenage girls now listening to the new version of Fearless who probably haven't heard the original version.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a bit like you had when the special editions came out in theaters. Obviously, I'd watched them on VHS at my cousin's house, but I'd never seen them in the cinema before, and it gave me a chance to watch Star Wars in the cinema. But like, there's also kids in that cinema who the parents probably took them to see it, and they probably never seen Star Wars before, but because George had went back and sort of re-edited and added things and sort of, I wouldn't say remade the movie, but he added things in, added film new scenes to put in and put this new art out. It sort of does regenerate. Not only is it there to sort of help old fans, but it creates new fans as well. People who have not experienced it before get to experience it for the first time again.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really cool, especially like I feel like she's gained a whole new group of fans after her last two albums, Folklore and Evermore, and to have people go back and be able to re-experience, and also me who bought Fearless on like day one when it was released way back when, to like re-experience that all together with like the fandom is really neat. And I guess like that's really similar to how Star Wars responded to the special editions too. It like brought in a whole new crop of fans when that was re-released.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. That brings an end to this Knowing Me, Knowing You special. Charlotte, I hope you've enjoyed it.
Yes, I absolutely did. Thank you so much for having me.
Where can people find you on social media?
So you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. My handle is Crarity. That's CRERRITY. And you can find me on my podcast, Skytalkers, which releases an episode basically weekly, sometimes bi-weekly. You never know with us. But we're going to be talking about Bad Batch soon. And you can find Skytalkers wherever you get your podcasts.
Is there a summer series coming this year?
Yes, there is. Of course, there's a summer series. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but we're like 90% sure on the topic, and we're really excited about it.
Cool. For anybody listening who maybe hasn't listened to Sky Talkers, definitely go listen. Like I said, it's one of my favorites. It's my favorite Star Wars podcast out there. But the guys or the gals even do a summer series where it's like a 3-episode deep dive into a certain aspect of Star Wars. So I think ones in the past have been animation. They did Yoda. My favorite was the George Lucas one you did. That was a really good summer series, the George Lucas one that I loved the most.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate that. I hope that this summer is just as good. I really thank you so much for saying that. It's really nice.
No problem. Well, thank you very much, Charlotte, for joining me here. May the force be with you. Listeners out there, may the force be with you guys. Stay safe. If you get offered a vaccine, please take it. Let's get ourselves back to normal. And remember, always tell that to Kanja Club. Please follow us on Twitter at BoresStar. That's at BoresStar. And on Instagram and Facebook at Star Wars Podcast. You can also reach us on email at starwarspodcast@gmail.com. The Star Wars Show can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, and wherever podcasts can be found. Please give us a like, subscribe, and don't forget to leave a 5-star review. May the Force be with you.